So I'm wondering if it's working now. So I'm not sure what YouTube is doing. YouTube is probably not working. Probably the Twitch stream is working. I'm still not sure about that. Welcome back. Yeah, I don't know what happened, to be honest. The stream just stopped working, restreamed it, stopped working. I personally hate this. It's not really reliable at the moment, and I'm not sure what it is. If it's my network, if it's Restream.io that I'm using to stream to both channels at the same time. But is YouTube also doing something? It's a good question. Is YouTube streaming? Are we live? Very good question. Something is actually happening. This is interesting. Okay. Okay, seems to be that YouTube is live and we're also live back on Twitch, which is great. Which is great to see. Hello, welcome back. Sorry for the interruption. I don't know what happened, to be honest. Technology is always super exciting if it's not working. Always not working when you need it, but it seems to be live again. We're back. Okay, since we're back now, so let's double check what we've done. We have a perfect wig, a really nice pirate, making some progress here. Now, talking about progress, I need to decide where we're going to put this, what we're going to do with this guy. My idea is actually, I have like two different ideas. One is, of course, we're going to like put it again at the front porch of the house to see how the reactions of people. Probably have to secure the parts a little bit because like the hat is easily removable, so I don't want anyone to steal the part. So I have to think about that, of course. But nevertheless, I think we can put it at the front door. The second thought that I had, I'm a huge fan of the Lego channel Brickman Brothers, which are like from Germany, Bavaria. They have a Lego store, and maybe at some time I'm gonna bring it to them, and when it's like all painted and finished, I think it's not the worst idea to ask them if they want it, because it's just a really nice thing. Just especially if you have a Lego store. So not the worst idea. Put a camera on it. Yeah. And we have front door camera, like we have cameras around the house, so that's not the problem. Man. Why technology is letting us down. Now, since we have already restarted the stream, like we're probably going to be creating multiple files here. Multiple outcome files on YouTube. At least I think we're going to create a couple of replays. So I guess that's why it's actually not a bad idea to start something new that I also wanted to do tonight. So I don't have space here for the guy yet. Probably have to clean up my workshop anyways, because there's so much stuff here that I don't need. That I need to sort out and figure out what to do next. So, but anyways, we lost probably most of the viewers already. Just want to remind you that we are still doing a giveaway. I guess since I've been sick for the last 2 weeks and you didn't have the chance to watch the stream and take part in the competition, I think it's fair that we're just going to extend it a bit. We're not going to draw the winners tonight, but we're going to do it maybe next week. And next we're going to have probably a more attractive stream actually. We're going to have an exciting unboxing to do of a new printer, which is, I would say, still fairly new. It's fairly new and not many content has been done already on this printer. I'm going to unbox it and test it out next week or the week after. I guess probably more like the week after next week. Next week is a week where I don't see that I can make a stream, but the week after next week, we're going to do the unboxing most likely, and then we are going to do the drawing of the giveaway voucher and hoping for some fun. Now, the next part is also that I need to decide what I'm going to do next with the 3D model generator. Maybe a little update on that, just for the ones of you who are interested to see this. Let me bring up a new browser tab. Because I'm making some progress here. And just want to show you a little bit of what I've changed over the last couple of weeks while I had some time, regardless of the sickness that I had. Now, what did I change in the Chat 3D tool? Currently still registration isn't available publicly, so you cannot really register when you're not on a kind of a list that I've created. But as a next step, I will make this available to all patrons. So this is my next step. I promised this for end of February to all of you, and it is going to happen probably next week. I'm going to make this available to all patrons. Now, if you've never seen what this is basically just still a prototype application that I've created to test out how easy it is to create CAD models from AI, which some people might be interested in, some might not be super excited, because there are so many model generators out there now that can create 3D models with a chatbot. But this one is supposed to be a little bit different, because it is going to be like the plan is that we're not creating something that is more an image generator that makes a 3D model out of an image as a game asset or something, which is honestly mostly what every other 3D model generator out there does. This is more about creating parametric models that are more usable in CAD programs and maybe I want to share a different screen, to be honest, and I can move this down. Let me see, display. Let's use the second screen. Yeah, so let's move this down so I can have a look at Twitch again. Ad break in progress. So the ad break is almost over, so we're gonna be back in a second. Ad break is over. I think we have Twitch back now. Welcome back on Twitch. Now, what I want to show you is why this program is different than other model generators that I've created. Why I think it's going to be a little bit better for a specific purpose. It's not going to be creating that creative stuff. It's more creating parametric, functional ideas. And so, I tested this out originally with just one large language model, which is Claude 3.5. Now, what I added here is a selection of all these different large language models. Now, let me make it a bit smaller so you can see it. Besides the fact that we have the chat window, the face here. So this is the list of the AI models that I already tested out. Quite an extensive list. So Anthropic Claude 3.7 already released, I think 2 days ago. And I already integrated it into the chat. And we still have the older version 3.5. We still also have a lot of other models here that we can use to create the designs. Now, eventually, I'm going to basically just drop everything else and go with one of them, because I want to make a decision and say, I'm still figuring out which of these models is the best to create the initial designs, and so we can train another model that is going to be the ultimate model, that's going to be like the best model for the job. And so I think I'm going to settle on something like maybe MetaLlama or even OpenAI GPT, because that is the fine-tuning for that is absolutely the easiest that I could find. It's very easy. and is also quite affordable. So the idea is to come down from this huge extensive list of different AI models down to today. I think it doesn't really matter if you're coming from YouTube or Twitch, because the contest is going to end in 2 weeks or something. But if you're watching on Twitch, you're going to collect points. And so for watching on Twitch, you can collect the loyalty points that you can then use to enter into the giveaways. That's the difference, right? This is not working on YouTube. You can only collect these points on Twitch. Now, back to this idea here is I'm going to settle, basically I'm just going to reduce this list. This is just for, like, I think for testing purposes, it makes sense to have all this choice. But in the end, what you want is you don't want to mess around with different models. You want to settle on one and then want to train it so it gets best at the job, right? So that's what I'm trying to figure out. Now, what you can do here is essentially you can just say, you can just type something like create. I mean, we can create a box, right? So we can start with that. It's a very simple thing, right? So creating a box is essentially one of the most simple jobs to do. And let me just bring the table down so I can sit here with you. So, and like creating a box is probably one of the most simple things to do. And then from there, the idea is that you can like basically give it very basic instructions like create a box or create XYZ thing. And then from there you can fine-tune the result in a way that you can give it instructions to change the parameters or anything that you want to change. So probably need to reload the page. Is it loading the model now or is it not? It's a good question. I think yeah, here we go. So it created a box, right? We didn't give it any kind of detailed instructions, to be honest. So it might be wise to give it more specific instructions to create something more meaningful. So why we lost the left side, I don't know. So internet connection is pretty much unreliable at the moment. Now, to make this a more specific box with like a specific size, length, height, you can change that anytime. Now, what comes out, like, I just don't want to like dive too deep into this yet, but what you get here is basically just a creation that is modifiable either here in the chat by giving further instructions, or you can download this as a scat file, which is currently the format that I've settled on, but I'm going to change that. Right, we're going to move from OpenSCAD to build 123D. If you've ever heard of this, it is also a 3D modeling language that you can use to define 3D models and then export it in all kinds of different formats like step files and 3MF and STL and blah, blah, blah. And OpenSCAD basically can do the same, but it is much simpler in a way that it has less complexity with the operations that you can do. This can be an advantage because it's good if you're just starting. But if you want to do like more complex designs, I think OpenSCAD is probably not the best. But you see the file that you're getting is just a very straightforward OpenSCAD design. I think we can just try to open it in OpenSCAD and see what it is. Right, and creating a box in OpenSCAD is pretty much straightforward. It's just a cube, and that has some kind of inner cutout because it's a box. It's not a complete cube. And if you render this, you will get the same thing that you get in the app. And this is just the box that we created. So in the end, the plan is that this is going to be usable for creating all kinds of different assets that you can modify later in a CAD program. And the reason why I'm switching again from OpenSCAD now, this is one of the next steps that I want to try, is switching from OpenSCAD to Build123D because it is just more powerful. It has more like variety of operations. It also supports sketching, which means you have a 2D sketch that you can create. And from the 2D sketch, you can extrude stuff and just create a little more complex designs than with just OpenSCAD. And OpenSCAD is also limited in terms of the formats that it can export. It can only basically just export meshes, and has also a different kind of way how it actually creates the things in the CSG format. And so it is very, like in that regard, a little bit limited, and that's why I'm switching. Now, what it also requires, and switching from OpenSCAD to Build123D, means that we have to train one model more specifically. We have to like invest a little bit into model training and make the model that we're going to finally settle on, probably something like GPT-4 Mini, so it really becomes very knowledgeable of the design language, so the Build123D, which is a scripting language. I think it's just basically just a Python scripting language, but it needs to be very knowledgeable of the syntax of Build123D, and also a lot of examples need to be feeding into the model so that it really knows how to do the stuff. And that's what's the next step is going to be. Most likely it's going to be like training one of these models for more specific outcomes. And then also giving it a lot of examples like, okay, if we know boxes, we can also design specific boxes, for example, for specific devices. So if you would want to have something like make it a Raspberry Pi 4 case, right, then it will have to know how the Raspberry Pi dimensions are, right? And this might be something that the model knows, but it might also be that it doesn't know all of the specifics for a Raspberry Pi 4. And so what we will have to do is we have to pick the use cases and say, we want this to be very good at creating Raspberry Pi 4 cases, or Raspberry Pi 3 cases, or Raspberry Pi 5 cases. So we need to give it a lot of examples and say, here are a couple of Raspberry Pi cases that have been handcrafted with the design language that we want to use. And so it will be knowledgeable of how this works, right? Sometimes it might be enough to tell it through the training process, okay, this is the dimensions of the Raspberry Pi case, and these are the, I don't know, the cutouts, the positions, the thicknesses and stuff like that. It might be working, but I'm not 100% sure if it's going to be working. So that's why this is still, I would say this is still very much a research project. Now you see, it's trying to do something that comes close to a Raspberry Pi 4 case, but you will also see in a second, and this is my experience so far, even with the latest Claude 3.7 Sonnet, it still is struggling with details, right? It has a basic understanding of what a Raspberry Pi 4 case is, but it will still struggle with the cutouts. And I mean, it looks not too bad, but I guarantee you, if I would take now a really handcrafted design for a Raspberry Pi 4 case, it would show you that this is not really accurate enough. I mean, even the cutouts didn't really cut it out completely. It just kind of made some insets here, but these are not completely open. So you would have to guide it even further. I think this is not the worst start. You can already see there is already some mounting points here for the Raspberry Pi. If you look closer here in the, if we didn't have the top element, we cannot remove it at the moment because it's just one design. But it has a basic understanding, if you will, it has a basic understanding of what a Raspberry Pi might look like, but it doesn't have all of the exact specifications and doesn't really know where to do the cutouts and so this is something that you need to do in the training process, right? You need to train it using real designs that are coming very close to what you might want. And so it's going to be more clever if you ask it for something that is also not the exact same thing, but something a little bit different. For example, I don't want these ventilation holes here, but I want some kind of fan opening. Well, we probably don't want to create that as a training data. We just probably want to create a very good Raspberry Pi 4 case that has some basic features, or even just a base plate, and then it hopefully is already enough to make the model understand how this works. Now, we can also create like Tutankhamun. Yeah, we can create a hammer actually. Like we could create a hammer model. I don't know if you want to be more specific. Like the thing is now, if you are very unspecific, you might get something very unspecific, right? So it's more also a point that you need to be somewhat specific with what you want to create. But we could say we can create a, let's say we want to create a sledgehammer, right? It's probably a little more specific at least. We could also say we want to have a, how's it called? I don't know, it's like a carpenter hammer. Probably looks also very like unique. So we can say make it a carpenter hammer, or make it a, I don't know, make it a small hammer or a big hammer. I don't know. Like I would personally, I would first initially struggle a little bit with the specification, but I think that's also part of the process to figure out when do we need to ask for more details, right? So if you are very unspecific in your initial question, now it really just starts, right? It's not stopping. It's not going to ask you something and say, hey, this is probably not good enough for me. I need more information. What I want to also train it a little bit further, like want to instruct it more to not create in the first place if you are too unspecific, right? If you just do say, let's create a hammer, it could do it, but it probably shouldn't, right? It should first ask you some more specifications about it, like how big should the hammer be, and for what do you want the hammer, and then it can be more precise with the output, because now it's created a hammer, which is probably good. It's okay. But since we didn't specify anything else, it's probably not going to be the thing that you wanted originally. It might be okay, but it might also be that is not the thing that you wanted. So yeah, it's not too bad actually. It created a little bit handle, like it probably has some kind of rubber part here. That makes it easier to hold the hammer. So and it's actually two parts here. Some details that I don't quite understand, to be honest, what that is, but it has some interesting, couple of interesting details. So you see, it is already pretty capable in a way, and it's not trained in any way. Like there is no fine tuning yet happening with Claude 3.7 in regarding this this result. I did never tell it how to do a hammer, right? So it just came up with this design fully on its own. But you can imagine what will be possible if we are training it even further to give it the best possible examples for some specific parts and say, these are perfect handcrafted versions of a hammer where we have written the code by hand, making it like a very good example. And then I think from there, if that gets into the training, it can even just become better. I think it's going to be even probably 10 times better than this, because it already has a good amount of training information on the best things. What else could we try? Needle-nosed pliers. I don't know what the needle-nosed plier is, to be honest. But maybe it can come up with something that you wanted. But it might also, again, it might not be the thing that you want. And the other impression that you might have is that the OpenSCAD language is already enough in terms of how good it is to create certain things, but I think it's also very limited, right? It's using very much primitives like cubes, spheres, cones, tubes, and that's basically it, if I'm honest. And can also like deform parts a little bit, but it's not, I would say it is still too limited in terms of the variety of the primitives it has and also the variety of operations it can do. That's why OpenSCAD, I don't think that is going to be the final thing. And sometimes it's stuck loading, probably also because of the internet connection again. So you see the pliers are, I think it is, you can imagine that this is somewhat what you wanted, but the parts are disconnected. This is something that also happens sometimes, that parts are just not connected in the way that they should be connected. Still, I think it made it already imagined the thing in a way that it's close. Now, what we need to do is now to instruct it to fix this problem, right? So fix the parts of the pliers to be connected and not floating separated in the air. Like, I mean, how you want to formulate this is up to you, but you can basically just say, hey, this is not, or you just say, try harder, right? So you can also not specify even what is wrong. Sometimes it will understand what is wrong. Sometimes you need to tell it a little bit more, like what's not right here. I don't know actually what this is here. Like, is this supposed to be some example what you're gonna cut or so? I have no idea what this is actually. This little wire piece here. No idea if this is supposed to be an example of stuff that is currently cutting. This could be, because we said something about needle. Maybe it mistook the information as you want a needle in this model. But yeah, you see, it didn't really work. We can already tell from the preview image that it's still not able to connect the parts. Still struggling here. And that's why now it put the needle somewhere here. I don't know what this means, to be honest. So it actually made the thing worse. I guess it's actually made it worse. Yeah, it made it worse. So if you figure it made it worse, we can just like delete this and say, okay, let's get rid of this. Let's go back to the previous step and just try again. And I think we need to fix the prompt here and like try again. And this is something also, sometimes it will definitely go into trial and error. Sometimes you can fix these kind of things by pushing it harder and trying to make it understand what it actually is not doing right. So how would we tell it now that it's not, that the pliers are not connected? Okay, so let's fix this. Let's fix the plier not being connected to the, what is it, grippers? I don't know, what is this? Is this the right way to say this? Let's fix the pliers not being connected. No, it's probably the wrong way to tell it. Connect the pliers to the hand grippers. Is it correct to say it this way? The handles. Connect the pliers to the handles. Well, yeah, maybe that's the thing that's wrong, right? We wanted to connect the handles to the pliers. Yeah, that's actually the thing. Let's try that. And what the good part is, if we can make it work and say we're gonna get some pliers that actually look like pliers, then we can vote it. Like, we can leave a thumbs up here. And the idea that I had is using the rating you could basically just help me. Once you've created something that you are actually happy with, you can rate it up and say, this is good, this is what I actually wanted, this looks fine, or it looks very close. And so we could potentially use that as a training information for the next version. But I would really stress everyone not to rate anything with the thumbs up that is not actually the thing that they wanted, right? So if it just looks nice, but it's very unfunctional or something, I would tell, don't rate it up. Just not rate it at all. Oh my goodness. What did you do? I mean, what are you thinking? That's weird. I have no idea what this is supposed to be. Yeah, it's not getting it. I think it's not. Probably we have to start all over. Like sometimes it doesn't really make things better. Sometimes it is actually better to just try completely from scratch. We can do that like we just delete the last one, and we can also delete this one, and then we can say I don't know what this is like. I also wrote it in the wrong way. As let's say needle nose pliers. Ensure all parts are connected as they should. I mean, I don't know if I can push it in this way. Sometimes this helps, sometimes not. And like sometimes it really doesn't make sense to iterate any further. Sometimes if you realize the iteration doesn't make the stuff worse, probably the best way to get better results is to either completely scrape it and get restarted with a new chat window, or you can delete the previous steps and try. Maybe there was a previous step that actually was better. Then until that point, delete everything that was below, and then coming back to this design, trying to improve it might make more sense, right? Can you send a picture of pair of pliers so it knows what it looks like? Well, I was starting like, oh, this, I don't know what's doing now. I have already implemented a file upload here, where you can drop an image, but it's not yet using it. So it's not. No, this is really bad. So this is bad. This is bad. Yeah. So prompting is, or like really giving it the right instruction in the beginning is crucial. Also because it's not very good at certain objects, right? So you probably have to train it better, or you need to be very specific. Can you get it to look on Thingiverse, for example? Yeah, I mean, anything that is available as an image should at some point be working as a kind of an input for an idea. Now, what is going to happen with an image? To be honest, what I'm going to do with the image is nothing else but using the LLM and giving it the image and say, describe what you see in this image, right? Because it's the only way how it can work. Like, describe the object that you see in this image as if you would have to redesign it using a CAD program, using this specific programming language even, because the more specific the prompt, the better. So I would give it that kind of prompt and say, here is an image. This is what you should do with the image. Analyze, like look at the image and tell me what it is, and try to figure out how you would redesign this specific part in this programming language for 3D modeling. And then I would start thinking about the image and basically give you, I would say, some meta information in the first place that describes the content of the image. And then it could go to the next step and take that kind of meta information that it created itself about the image and push it towards the model generator and say, here is my description of what I want. Based on this image, I've created this description as precise as possible. And then it will iterate. And then you can basically, you're in the same conversation as you have been before when you prompted it manually without the image. So that's kind of, it's not too complicated, to be honest. This is already kind of doable if you have a good image recognition model that can take an image and then really make a very thorough and deep description of the content of the image. Again, I think a lot of experiments need to be done with creating this kind of system prompt that pushes the analytics into a direction where it is creating a description that is actually usable for the 3D model generator in a way that it describes it not only as, well, there is a cat in the image. That might be accurate in a way, but it should more like figure out, okay, describe it in a way that is cat usable in a cat program, right? Can you get it to fix Twitch? Oh my goodness. Is Twitch again lagging, or is it not working? I hope not. Okay, so yeah, that's basically it. Again, what I'm planning is I'm gonna make this version as it is. I'm gonna make it available to my Patreon, so you can play around and create some stuff and just give some feedback. Of course, I'm not gonna give everyone all of these different choices here because it's just confusing, I guess. It doesn't really help so much. So probably just gonna leave it as it is with the most powerful model, which is the Claude 3.7 Sonnet. And then we can go and figure it out how like people are using it, what kind of questions they're going to ask this system, and what kind of models they want to generate, and also how they are rating them. Now, on the other hand, switching to build 123D, just as a final thought, this will take me some time, but I think it's really worth the effort. Is build 123D is, in my opinion, one of the best 3D modeling languages currently available. There is plenty of choice, to be honest. There is, I would say, at least 10 different languages that can be used to describe 3D models. This one seems to be quite promising to me because it's kind of a evolution of cat query. So cat query was already pretty good, in my opinion, and then this is the next version, I would say, of cat query, as they also described this themselves. And I think this is pretty promising in terms of how simple it is, but it's also still pretty powerful. And it has also a good amount of instructions and how to move on from OpenSCAD. And you see, just comparing a couple of examples where you create this kind of angle bracket here in OpenSCAD, you know how to do that, and now it's like the build 123D approach is, I can actually do different ways how to do this, but it looks a little bit simpler. It also has this fillet, which I think OpenSCAD doesn't have. So there is a couple, that's what I'm saying here, is there is a couple of operations and primitives that OpenSCAD has, kind of a limited set of functions, and build 123D is more advanced, has more variety, and can create more complex things with less code, which is always good if you can do the same thing with less lines of code. And so also the large language model has an easier job with creating the stuff. Now the algebra mode, I think, is very much not my thing here, but it could be an idea how to do certain things. And yeah, there is this, and then there is also like really lots of examples that I think could be used for training a model into this kind of direction. Say these are like, you can create dozens of examples like this, like a plane with a hole and stuff. So you can really like step by step, you can train it to understand better how to do certain things. And then in the end, what you want to achieve is that it understands the world as it is in a way that it understands how things are kind of made, and then also how to translate that into this programming language to model that and make it 3D. And why I mean, this is clearly a different approach than the image creation based generators out there, and I think it's more worth it looking into this versus creating something that is, again, just creating funny game assets, but not something that you want to have as a model if you want to have something functional. Okay, so guess we are pretty much, that's what I wanted to say about this. Lots of talking. Okay. I think this is, I mean, is this possible? Is it possible? Let's see if this works. Try the hair on. I mean, the hat is, well, it is a bit too small. The hair is probably not gonna, I mean, is it working? Well, yeah, kind of working. So the hair, but it doesn't go over my shoulder, so. But you see, it's pretty big, my friend. So what we, yeah, last thing to try actually. I wanted to try if we can use this as a modular piece, which is the kind of top element that we left out. Just not sure. But yeah, let's try if we can put that on. Maybe we need to, like, this is probably difficult because not all of the parts are like super perfectly aligned now. But yeah, I guess it could fit on. Yeah, kind of works. I think that's something that I have to, probably I need to make it a bit more, I would say, open up the holes a bit, widening the holes. This could work. It definitely can work. But again, I want this to be a kind of modular, and so in the end, I think we need either we need to make the connector pins, we need to file them down a bit so they are a little bit smaller now, or we can open up the holes a bit. But I guess just making the pins a little bit, just sanding them a tiny bit, will probably make this easier. And so in the end, we have kind of a modular top element that is the red bandage version. And then we can just swap the parts when we wanna do it. I personally like this the most, but I also like this red one. Like if we look into how the originals look like, I think Lego Jack Sparrow, there is a version out there that looks like this. I think this is the one that we are doing as a kind of a secondary version that is using the wig, plus the red bandage. There is different versions, like there's different, yeah, but this is actually the big part here on the left, like on the right hand side. This is what's sticking out a little bit to the right. That's why it is not perfect, like the combination, if you look at the other version here, that's why it's not the perfect way to do this, because clearly in the like hat version from the original, the hair looks different and it's not that big, it's not that wide as it is currently. But I think it's probably one of the, like, to have it that as a kind of a flexible idea here where you can just take the top element off, still pretty doable, like pretty valuable, because you can swap it out. And yeah, there's also different, you see there's different painted versions here, different belts. Yeah, kind of a lot of different ideas that we can still use to finish this painted version. So this is what I got. In the meanwhile, I think I'm going to do some painting job here. And then I will do a couple of short videos for the final version when it's on our front porch. And hopefully that's going to create some fun for you as well. Yeah. By the way, yeah, giveaway. If you didn't get this, I've already said this. We're gonna move the giveaway to 2 weeks ahead because of the fact that I couldn't stream for the last 2 weeks. Hope this is giving everyone a chance to participate better, and also becoming more consistent with the live streams is one of my goals, because I couldn't stream that much in the last couple of months. There was so much stuff going on in my life that I had just no time for anything, right? Just no time. I mean, it is part of the game here is consistency, and if you're not consistent with the content, people are not coming back. I totally get that, and no one's really gonna care. No one's caring about whether you make videos or not, because everyone is just watching what they want. But in the end, I personally have set my goals. I want to be more consistent, making as much weekly live streams as I can, and creating a couple of long form videos that are edited in a way versus just live streaming, which is always painful in terms of time investment and the payoff. Sometimes it just not pays off. It doesn't pay off. But on the other hand, I want to work on this project here with the 3D model generator. I think it's a fun project. I think it's kind of could be the output or the outcome could be something that very useful for the community, and that's why I think going through Patreon to have some people like who really want that, a way for them to support it is one way. We could also make it open source. I think the idea of making it open source, I actually like that. However, it is probably, the question is really what you are getting out of it, because open source, the actual chat program is probably not that difficult, but the 3D model and the training is something that is probably out of scope in a way, because it's like you cannot really open source that, because you have, let's say we do it on open AI, then the model is simply not available to the public, right? So you can't do that. You cannot, there's no marketplace. That means if I have a trained model that's pretty good with doing the stuff, I cannot make it available to anyone else. And that's why I think the open source idea only takes you up to a certain point, and then you're basically just stuck with the fact that you cannot share the creation on OpenAI or any other provider that has a private training space. You cannot share that. So it's the other possibility to do it is using an open source LLM like Llama, for example, or whatever. There's so many out there. There's an unbelievable amount of choices. So the biggest problem is figuring out which one of them, of the open source models, is a good starting point, which is a good foundation for the specific job. Because the fact is that like all of these models out there are not really good at, like none of them is particularly good with this kind of 3D modeling stuff, except Claude. That's my personal takeaway. I've tried all these different models, and if you're not doing any training, just out of the box, basically just a foundational model, Claude 3.5 or 3.7 are the best foundational models that are also at the same time very creative, creating 3D models in the programming language OpenSCAD. Now it really comes down to the point that how much openly available sample source code for these kind of languages is available at the training time. And fact is that OpenSCAD is long enough, does exist long enough that there is enough training data available for the model provider to consider this as a language that they actually want to train the model on, right? Something like Build 123D is so exotic still and not old enough in a way that it might just not have enough public data to train on. And so that's why if you want to change from OpenSCAD to anything else, you need a lot more personalized data that you probably have to create yourself than for OpenSCAD, right? Because OpenSCAD is, there's lots of public, also on Thingiverse, OpenSCAD files that potentially have maybe or not made it into Claude 3.5 or 3.7. That's the tricky part, that you need a certain threshold of examples, and the language that you're using is probably, if you say, okay, for Java and JavaScript, there's millions and billions of examples out there, and that's why Claude still also is probably one of the best models for coding, because the amount of training data for these languages is pretty large. But again, for these very specialized languages, if you want to call it like that, or libraries, the amount of training data is super limited, and that's why it cannot be that creative and not that good, even if it's the best model out there. Even if you claim that the public internet is probably available to all of the model providers, you might think that they use everything that's publicly available on the internet, every single text that's available. It's still not true. They are still limiting the training information to what they are interested in, right? And certain languages, for example, and code for those languages might not be in their scope. And that's why some of the models, like even OpenAI, GPT-4o is very bad at creating OpenSCAD compared to Claude 3.7. And that's not because OpenAI is a better company or a worse company in that regard. It's just because they probably just have different training data that they decide to put into the model, right? But yeah, it's a lot of details that I have to figure out still, and it's a huge learning curve. Could it be that this is the reason why Bamboo is using the cloud to print files, collect G-code models for training AI modeling? Well, the thing is that if you think about how these files are looking, the G-code is, I mean, you have something like a box. Or let's say even more simple, you have a sphere, right? A sphere is defined by diameter or radius and an XYZ coordinate in the coordinate system. So essentially you have like 4 values that define a sphere. It's that simple. You don't need more values than basically these 4 numbers, right? Radius, XYZ. Then you have your sphere. Now when you translate that into an STL file or a 3MF file, you're dividing the sphere surface into thousands of little triangles, right? So you're creating from the 4 numbers that you already had in the beginning for the sphere definition, you have now hundreds of thousands of numbers that define the positions of the triangles that define the sphere surface, and it is not perfect anymore because it is divided into these little triangles. And the more triangles you create, the more like fine it might look like, but it still is a massive duplication of information just for the sake of defining a sphere. Now, if you convert that into G-code, because that's what's happening essentially, you're slicing the spheres, triangles that make the surface, you're slicing it into hundreds of layers, and for each layer, you're just defining the movement of the nozzle. So if you would want to use that information for an AI model to create models, it's probably the worst information that you can take. It's really so bad, right? If you use the G code, I cannot imagine a more terrible bunch of information to train a model to create something new. It's terrible. It's a very terrible idea. So better would be, like I would say, a one step better would be to have the STL file and use the STL file as an input, because it's kind of a point mesh or a point cloud. If you remove all the triangles, you could also say it's just a point cloud because of the points that are basically the corners of the triangles. These are the point cloud, and the point cloud could be used as an input for a model to say, look, this is the point cloud for a sphere. Now I want to create a bigger sphere, right? Can you make me a bigger sphere with more points in the point cloud? That's something that an AI can do because it's vectors, and an AI model is also using vectors internally, and vectors can be used to train this kind of thing. So that's why I think G-code is completely useless, and point clouds and STL files are much more valuable to train a model to create better or different things from it. Yeah, that's why I don't know about how their internal copyrights are defined or how their terms are in terms of what they are supposed to use or not use, or what they are using, even if the terms are saying something else. But theoretically, you can just go scrape the internet, download every single STL file that you can find. No one's going to stop you. And then you can put it into a model creator. And I mean, this is not enough to be like, just to make it clear. Just using the point cloud or the STL file alone is not enough. You need to have some proper description what this is, right? Or you need to have images of it. So it's a combination of things. You can probably have the STL file, which is the technical information about the thing. You should also have some images about it. So an AI can look at it and say, this is, I understand. This is, I don't know, a car model. And then you also have the meta information from the platform and say that someone has actually written in the title that this is a car or a specific car and for a specific purpose. And that's why you need all of that information to train the model and say, I have the meta information, I have maybe image information, and I have the STL or the point cloud, and all of that together makes sense. And so then you can take that information and then you can define a new model, an LLM model or a 3D model generator that understands the things that you're asking for, because it has all of that meta information on top of the actual point clouds or the STL meshes. And then it can make sense of your question. Otherwise, it wouldn't really know what to do with the question, right? Because just the STL files alone is not enough information, right? Yeah, I mean, the point, yeah, Cyrus, I get it. It's probably a lot of companies are now doing these kind of things. They are like, even like if you go to OpenAI in the public chat, or if you go to any other public chat, GPT derivative public AI chat, they will probably have in their terms that if you are not on a kind of a business plan with them, you are giving them your information to train their models to improve the model. That's probably the reality out there, and that's probably true for, I don't know exactly, but I think it's probably it's very likely that this is the case for most of the chat systems out there that you can use for free. Yeah, right? Because to make it free, the trade-off is that you're giving them the information to train the system. And only if you pay, and most likely only if you have a business version of the thingy, you can somehow opt out of the public training. I think you can opt out for some of the providers. You can absolutely opt out even in the, let's say, free versions, but you have to do this actively yourself. You have to opt out of the training term. But again, if you have a company that is, I don't know, somewhere in the world where there is no regulations, I don't want to name someone specifically because I think it's not like, if everyone's just bashing on Bamboo, fine, but I think there's no difference between them and others, right, to be honest. Why should there be any different, right? Everyone's trying to do the same thing. And so why should they be different than anyone else? Or why should others be not doing it, right? So you need to ask that question too. So I guess everyone's trying to do the same game now. But that's also the reason why I was thinking, look, all of these all of these generators are basically trying to do the same thing. They are trying to create 3D models from a prompt, but the base information in 99% of the cases, the information that they have is based on point clouds or meshes. So what they can create is meshes. Or point clouds. They cannot create a CAD file. And I had this discussion lately with someone from the from the CAD customer, or from CAD customer that basically has hundreds and thousands of CAD files. And even they have no way to reverse engineer the creations that they have done with the CAD program into something that is usable in an AI tool. Because if you have something, let's say you have something like Fusion, you are creating something in a CAD program and you have a design history. And in the design history, you see all of the different steps that you've done, like hundreds and thousands of different steps that you have done from start to the end and the final result. And you cannot really export that in a way that you can use that information to train an AI model. At the moment, at least, it's not possible to train an AI model to do these steps in this very order to create exactly the thing that you are asking for, because that's just too complex. And it's not. And it's also just going to be for this one, even if that would be possible, it is only for this specific program, for this specific type of information, and any other, like if you have another CAD program that works different, you would have to start completely all over again, right? So, and if you have the CAD file as a kind of a binary file or something, even if it's text, you cannot reverse engineer from that file how it was created, like how it is, like how you would instruct an AI to say, okay, now I want this to be done in OpenSCAD, right? I have this from, I don't know, program X, which has a completely arbitrary format or like a completely different format. Now I want you to create what is in this file. Please recreate that as an OpenSCAD. There's so much information missing. That's why they are really struggling. There's no solution at the moment how to basically reverse engineer these CAD files into something that an AI can learn, and then from there, any way to create new CAD files or modify them even. It's very complex. So it's probably at some point it might be possible, but today it is just not a thing that is feasible. And that's why I think if you are starting from the beginning, if you have a format right from the start, that is based on code that describes exactly the model as code and not as meshes and not as point clouds and not as an image or something. That's what all these other generators are basically based on. But more like really a very precise piece of code that creates exactly that. You will have a much easier life to modify that and say, I can iterate over this now and make changes, parameterize it even, and say, okay, this is a box, but actually what I want is, I want parameters where I can use sliders or text boxes to change the size of the thing and the diameter of the thing and the thickness of the thing. And if you are basing all of the initial creations on code, that is 100 times easier than for trying to do this based on STL, for example, because STL is also not reverse engineerable in a way that an AI can understand what's going on in the file. It is really not possible at the moment. It's too complex, too much information that is missing. And so that's why I think code is definitely the best way to start if you are trying to create something that is probably functional or that should be modifiable or kind of parameterizable. And it is simply a completely different approach. And if you start searching for model generators out there that have that approach and try to do it that way, there is just less than, I would say, less than 3 currently that actually are trying this. Because, why? Because it's much harder. Because creating 3D models from images or creating 3D models from a prompt that creates probably initially an image, and from the image creates something that is a model that looks like something, but it's actually just a blob of mesh, something that is very creative in a way, but also zero chance to edit this in a CAD program, besides pushing pixels around or pushing triangles, but no really parameterized. That's why there are so many of these, I would say, image-based generators, because it's actually, today it is very easy to do that, to be honest. You can just go on GitHub and find something that does exactly that. It's publicly available, right? It's free, even. You could say it's free. This kind of thing is free. To create 3D mesh objects with textures from a prompt, it is public information. There's no science behind it anymore that will block anyone from doing this themselves, even at home on their personal computer. You can run that stuff because it's already that advanced and already like pretty much it's done, right? So there is no secret behind it anymore. But again, 3D modeling, CAD-based modeling is still, I think, we are at the very beginning of this. And that's why I think it's much more valuable to invest time into that topic and try to make something that works. And even if it's not perfect and I have zero budget in terms of financials, except maybe for a way that I could imagine could work is really going through Patreon and animating like people to say, okay, maybe you can support me and you can become a Patreon, and then I have some funding that I can invest, because there is money to be, like there is definitely money that I need to spend on training data sets, running the system, basically just making it available public costs money, and also like the training is, I think the training is really the thing that's going to be the most expensive thing. Like going to, let's say, OpenAI, training a specific new version of a model that is more specialized on the topic. Again, taking that back, trying. I think this is probably a serious amount of money that I need for that, but I think it's really, could be the outcome is really something that I'm looking forward to, like to really see and try out, can this become something reasonably good so that people will say, okay, this is actually something that I want to use for basic design work. And based on the initial design, I can imagine that I will go into a CAD program and then maybe even a better, right? So because it's not, probably, there's also probably some limit to the complexity of the things that you would ever be able to create, but you can probably say, this is a good starting point. I want to create, I don't know, let's say we want to create a desk organizer for your pens and stuff. It could give you a really good starting point and say, I will create this desk organizer for you with this program, and then you can start fine-tuning it and say, okay, I'm moving things a little bit around, moving things here, to make this bigger, make this smaller, tweak the size a little bit in your favorite CAD program. But the starting point is 5 minutes to do, like 1 minute for you to get the initial thing up. And then from there, you have a much kind of a head start for the thing that you're looking for. And I think that's also not over exaggerating what it could do in the end. I think this is basically what probably most people want, is a head start with, or an initial draft from there. Like, I have this idea. How can I do it? Okay, let me draft it quickly with this tool and maybe do a little bit of a fine-tuning. And then once it's done, either you have the capabilities of taking it to the next level and modifying it in your CAD program, or you can give it to someone as a kind of a, brain dump, right? To give them to give yourself the chance to give it to a professional person who is really good at designing, and say, look, this is what I have imagined, right? Can you take this and make it perfect, right? Or I need, actually, this is very close, but I need these and these and these and these changes. And that's maybe the point where it gets too complex for the AI, but you're kind of giving yourself a head start, right? So, or the designer kind of a very good sketch in a way, right? Yeah. So target audience, I think you're right to ask this. It's probably a good idea to look into platforms where this could be integrated in a way. I think I have an API that I could make available to this platform and say, here is basically, there is this chat version, but there's also an API that you can utilize from Onshape or any other platform, or even make it available to everyone. Say, here's the API, you can get a key to use the API, integrate this tool into your platform, and send a creation request to the platform through the API, and get the design file back. And whatever you might do with that is up to you, right? You could say, hey, here is my here's my own program, that whatever program that might be, and I want to create things with the API and process them further, right? Or send them directly to a print farm or whatever. I think this is where I would say I would want to focus on. I personally think that I would want to focus on a very narrow thing like the 3D generator, and providing that as an API. And you could come and say, okay, let's integrate this into Onshape, right? I know how to, like, there is the API, I know how to use the API. I'm going to write the glue code that makes this available in the platform, right? So I think this is possible. If it's really valuable, I would even do it myself, but I would say I would then also need an API, right? So that's why I think it makes sense to start from the API layer and say, let's make the API layer available to the public at some point. So I personally or anyone else can go and use the API and integrate it into any platform they want. Of course, with kind of a payment model behind it, because it will still cost money to run it.